Welcome to Modern Mythology, a podcast that explores the many intersections of story and system. For more information about this episode, articles, or links to our other related projects, visit modernmythology.net.
All right, so let's get the party started. We're going to have a slightly different front loading than we normally do, which is usually pretty setting heavy, right? We're not going to do that, but I am going to give you a little bit of context to the game.
Good.
About 10 years or plus or so ago, there was this massive, 20 years ago is when the original Twilight Imperium came out. Boy, I'm old. And it's in its 4th edition right now. Generally, it plays at least about 8 hours to play.
This is the board game.
This is the board game. Takes at least 8 hours to play. And it's just this big sweeping. It tries to do everything. It tries to do space combat. It tries to do boarding actions. It tries to do political intrigue and Senate's voting. And it has all of these species involved and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
You do not need to play the board game in order to play the RPG. In fact, I think it's the other way around. I think if you play the RPG, it actually gives you a little more story context to the board game when you play that, which is kind of interesting.
That makes sense.
The one thing that is fun is that, you can kind of contextualize the planets, which are a key part of the board game. By when I say a planet is involved, you're like, oh, that's over here and that's over here. The funny thing about the board game is, like several of its predecessors, i.e. Settlers of Catan, the board changes every single time you play it. What systems are next to what systems is always going to be different because they're hexes and you build the board procedurally generated. I could see, because I'm an idiot, I could conceive of, I'm not going to do this, because we already have a laundry list of shit to do. Right. But I could conceive of an interesting campaign where ostensibly you play like a round of the board game,
sure,
keep it set up in some mythical basement, and then like play through what just happened or an adventure that was keyed on key events. That being said, I have given you these characters outside of context. The other thing to note that this is very different than what we've done in the past so far. This is a published adventure. The only other published adventure I've run the Roni published adventure.
Right. May have done one other one at some point, but
and that is, I want to point out that currently you can get for free 2 40-page free adventures plus a DLC for one of the 10-page DLC for one of the adventures, including probably at this point about a dozen characters. And it, Ashes of Power, which is the one we're going to be looking at, spoiler alert, was the free RPG Day package this year. I think it's this year. And it is very accessible. I think we're going to find out whether that's the case. Removes a lot of the ancillary sort of stuff in the books. You probably, with these 3 things, you probably could play, depending upon your frequency, maybe 12 to 20 sessions with just this stuff. Depending upon what your group is like, right? We see a lot of groups that just move at a snail's pace, because if you give your group a lot of leeway, then they could go in a lot of different directions. You play very focused games like I do, maybe it'll be 8 sessions. I don't know. I think I could probably stretch it to 12 pretty easily with just the free material alone and not really needing a lot of extra stuff, which is interesting, right? Yeah. Particularly the way we play, right? Right now, other than Jamie, we don't have these long, sprawling. We don't, that's our series joke. Other than Jamie's campaigns, we don't have these long, sprawling campaigns. We switch fairly often, trying trying to find the perfect game. The books are widely available, both PDF and physically. You would have to buy the core Genesys book and the Embers of the Imperium, which is the setting book for Twilight Imperium, which gives you all of the species and all the rules to play in Twilight Imperium, which quite honestly, reading through, I thought it was a really good, it gave you a lot there. Like, quite honestly, it's an expansive enough, whether it's not like the most well-developed, like ooh, ah setting in the world, but most people don't need that, right? This is probably on par with Starfinder and a lot of other space opera kind of stuff, right? You know? And it is a skill-based open system, so you could go in so many different directions, right? You could play so many different kinds of characters as to not need much more than just those two books. There is like a player's handbook to Genesys. Genesys is a couple books in its own right. There's one other, as far as I understand, one other campaign book called Will to Power or something like that I hear is fairly good if you're into campaigns.
It's written by Friedrich Nietzsche.
Yeah. And that could extend, if you really were into the world, could extend your play. For quite honestly, if you got the PDFs, $60, which is not terrible for probably easily could get 2 years of play out of a game like that, you know, depending upon your frequency. So
that's one thing to do.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Seriously. And I don't remember how much the physical books are. Obviously, they're going to be a little bit more, but you know, and they're color, they're beautiful, they're well done. I'm not one of these people who's a stickler for proofreading, so I can't attest to how many page XXs there are and stuff like that. But it's readable. It's referenced fairly well. As far as I remember, there's an index. I should note, and you guys can see this, all I have is printouts of the adventure with the characters and the app. And that's all I need to run this. I don't need all the books and all that sort of stuff to run what we're going to play. You can get into some minutia. You could see that I have a list of all the things you could use to spend die pips on. But reading through, it's pretty streamlined, and I don't think we're going to really need these much.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
So I like the ready-made characters, though. That's nice.
Yes. Yeah. Now there's an adventure. It's called Inspection Tour. It's another 40-page adventure. Probably has a lot of the same introductory material. Has its own characters, so you can mix and match. Those are based on the actual published character sheets, where Ashes of Power are a customized one-page character sheet that are a little more abridged. For instance, you don't see all of the skills. You only see the skills that you're trained in.
It's a good one sheet for running a game like we're doing now.
Right. If you feel like you want to do something outside your skill list, then we just relate to a stat. Okay? That's it. All right. I'm not going to go into the details of the system. You understand that it's a 1-to-5 ratio. Your die pools, your positive die pool should never go above 5. As you can see, several of your characters start out with 4s, which is good, 4 dice, and then you're going to have some bonuses and so on and so forth. This game does support ingenuity. There are ways where if you bring in little advantages and disadvantages that they add to what's going on in the game.
It's based on a tactical game, right?
What's that?
Imperium, basically a tactical game. So
the RPG?
Yeah, the board game.
Oh, the board game's a tactical game.
So it makes sense that they would kind of bring that over into the
but
RPG.
This is a narrative game.
Okay.
And this die pool system developed by Edge Studios makes Imperium, but I think Fantasy Flight made Genesys, right? And they did Era of the Empire, which is the Star Wars RPG that has its own dice. They did a number, Fantasy Flight's done a number. And of course they want to have fancy dice, right? But there is a free app, which is awesome, right? Which we're going to use. Whether or not we hear the comforting clatter of dice on our plastic tables here is another thing, but you should be able to read.
I'm always a fan of when you have custom dice that port over easily to regular dice if you don't have them. But
there is actually a grid, not a grid, a table that tells you if you're going to use regular dice, what this would be.
Gotcha.
It's not necessary, but they don't port well. They don't, it's not easy to tell what's what.
Right. Yeah.
You could just assume bad is low and good, but blah. Generally all the dice have 1 or 2 blank sides.
But I'll note this is the first time I'm playing a game that has dice that don't have numbers or dots on it as these symbols that represent.
Right. Okay.
Success, triumph, advantage, and failure.
I've played Fate, but you can use regular dice pretty easily with that.
And they're just pluses, minuses, and blanks.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, we'll do Fate at some point in time. I'm kind of mad about Fate, but there are 3 pieces of lore I'm going to tell you just for context because I think some of your characters at Kit matters. About 30,000 years ago, there is a race called the Mahat, and the Mahat became masters of genetic manipulation, very sort of Foundation Empire-esque, and they very successfully ruled for quite a long time. Several thousand years later, another race called the Lazaks overthrew them and had a more successful, basically wiped them off. They exiled to one dark planet somewhere in the distance. And the Lazaks have run the show for thousands upon thousands of years. I think it's been 3,000 years at this point. And then relatively recently, I think it's within lifetimes, the Lazaks were overthrown by petty squabbles, generally led by the system of Sol. But once the Lazaks Empire fell, everybody came into their own squabbles. Some tried to vie for control over Mechatol Rex, which is the main planet. And now it's just a bunch of fiefdoms. So
balkanization. Yeah, sure.
This is a game a little different than a lot of games where now we're under the Empire, now we're not under the Empire. The Laraks have appeared again, only now they're part of this Borg-like species called the L1Z1X, or the L1 virus. They're a technological, a mix between this 4-armed, species and ostensibly technology run rampant. Additionally, very recently, a portal, a rift in the universe opened and came hurtling the old Mahat homeworld, which had been thought to be exiled, far away, and now roams the central systems, like this rogue planet. The Mahat are this big boogeyman, right? So your 2 main, interestingly enough, the L1Z1X are part of the Greater Galactic Council, and which is on Mechatol Rex. Which the Calaris, this sort of group of troubleshooters, right? It's, a good guys club that goes around and, saves people and does missions and so on and so forth, are part of the Galactic Council or run by the Galactic Council. They send them out like a police force. But the L1Z1X are actually part of the Galactic Council, for better or worse. The Mahat gene sorcerers are not. They're There are these more mysterious bad guys that...
One of the only things about characters that I do not like the L1Z1X.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Any questions about that stuff? That is the long and the short of the big picture of who the sort of antagonists are. Scope. Otherwise, you have normal antagonists. You have good guys, you have bad guys. Even the bad guys and good guys, there's cross alignment. Like we said, you don't like the L1, right? But some people still want to trade with them, kind of idea.
There's FTL, or is it Warp Drive? Or?
Yes, there is in fact FTL. It's actually more standard. They understand ways to expand beyond the speed of light. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of deceleration, acceleration concepts. Your ships, you're not going to get into ship combats, but basically, like, because space is huge, it's not hard science fiction, it's absolutely space opera, but the idea is, like, you absolutely have to sync up if you're in any way going to interact with each other, right? So there's a lot of speed matching, in order to do anything. If you're not speed matched, you're all over the place, right? And there's like really no way other than missiles or whatever, no way to interact with one another. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of like, okay, we're going to come out of FTL and start and we have to decelerate to a planet because momentum is a thing, and so
and if you could stop on a dime, you would not want to. Right.
Yeah. I'm sure there's inertial dampeners and stuff like that, but otherwise you'd come out of FTL and
everyone's quitting.
Everybody lined up in the front of the ship. You are all fairly normal species. There are energy species and aquatic species, and technology's high enough that power armor is pretty common. Beam weapons are like the stock and trade, kind of idea. Obviously, I don't know. Do you guys have any melee weapons?
I've got a drop knife.
You have a drop knife?
Drop knife and a grazer carbine. So basically a space marine, pretty much, looks like.
Yeah. So you could imagine, because it's space opera, there's still going to be ship-to-ship combat, hand-to-hand combat.
I have an antique Lazax Grav Mace.
Grav Mace. That's interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Nice. It's pretty brutal melee weapon here. But I
love that idea.
It's ancient, but it's high tech.
Yeah, that's great. So we're going to get right in. You are on your flyer carries your Calaris team amongst glorious towering spires far above the deeply scored, lightless chasms of Mechatol City, low reaches. The ancient city is vast, glints in the setting sun. Few true ruins are visible, but you know that somewhere beyond the distant horizon begins the poisonous sea of desolation that covers the rest of this world. Over the low hum of the engines, you hear your Winarian handlers speak, and reminded of this ride is your final briefing. Attend, Calaris! I have much elucidation in little time. Custodial lore master, Palem, Pelonius, solemn, pale green face is hard to read. This is a world heralds truce, and a cabin hollow projector displays an image of a planet in slow orbit with a glaring bright half fixed towards its sun and an immeasurably dark half in permanent shadow. Contact with it has been reestablished by the galactic community scant years ago. A Calaris informant recently reported the probable discovery there of an unknown Imperial era technology. They also mentioned the presence of unsanctioned L1Z1X agents with an intense interest in this world. This is the source's final report. I'm aware you are newly sworn in Calaris, but you're being sent to this world as an advance team to learn what you can. Is that clear?
Are we to engage?
No.
I kind of grumble.
I don't know how we get the opportunity here to find something that more equitable for the Pax Imperialists if we're not to engage with this new technology.
I meant with the L1.
Oh, well.
You have any other questions?
Just being sent down with him?
That's it.
I'm being sent down with you.
We are stretched very thin as it is right now, and we are currently in a political deadlock that has the Calaris Council in a closed chamber. So the two of you were what we could come up with to learn anything.
I'm internally assuming that it's because I'm not very well liked within the organization, whether or not that's true.
And we're relatively new, but the Galactic Council is trying to come up with a budget, and is otherwise occupied or not occupied with government affairs. But I'm a I'm a volunteer for the Calaris, from the my species delegation for the Galactic Councils.
Do you have any further questions?
Are they expecting us?
No.
We have no contact.
No.
And we're looking for this tech.
More information on the L1Z1X technology.
Are we going to be sent down in a dropship? Pods?
You are assigned a Swift Overture class cutter, granted the Calaris, and you get a hint of air quotes in the word granted, by the Federation of Sol. You have been keyed in to its command codes. It is waiting for you in Adjunct Hangar Complex 5, Berth A5.
Okay.
Write it down in my hand in Sharpie. I think that's all.
Basically, then the ship descends onto as you enter the hangar, onto a berth, sort of drops you off, the doors close, and the small vessel disappears into the sprawling metropolis. You're left there on an enormous hangar complex. There are suspended above the poisonous sea is a number of platforms dotted with hundreds of hangars in varying levels, and this sprawling area that easily allows ships to come and go.
Being on the edge of the city.
Right.
Yeah.
The edge of the city.
And it's bustling with ships coming and going.
Yes. As you enter the hangar, you see starship berths sized for corvettes and lighter craft, each separated by thick security walls. The berths stretch away in lines along the opposite walls of the hangar and rise far above your heads in 4 stacked tiers. You do not need to walk far within the hangar to find your ship's berth. Screens quickly identify the ground floor as A level, so you step on a foot tram within a side passage that carries you towards the back of the hangar, running parallel near the wall. After a few moments, you step off of a 5th berth, ready to inspect your team ship, but as you enter through the doorway and the raised security barrier, your steps only echo across the scuffed plasticon floor. Berth A5 is totally empty.
No.
Of course it is.
I thought they were going to just give us a crappy ship. Instead, they give us no ship.
Maybe he gave us the wrong berth.
Well, I look up at the hangar. There's ships all over the place.
Uh-huh.
I think at this point we've just got to figure out which is the one that's most likely going to be amenable to take us where we want them.
Do you have perception?
No. Knowledge and...
Nope, that's fine. So you don't have perception. You would say perception. That's based off of cunning. So what you're going to do is you're going to bring up your app, and you're going to add 2 of the D8s.
Remember which color? Green, red.
Green. All right. And then add 2 green or red D8s. Those are your ability dice, are the green ones, and the red ones are difficulty dice.
I like purple, right?
I don't know what color they are.
Purplish, yeah.
Sure. You have two different colors. One's good, one's bad.
Okay.
One has X's on it. One has chevrons and stars on it.
Gotcha.
All right. So, and then all you're going to do is go ahead and hit the refresh and roll. No, it does make a little. All right.
Yeah.
So at the top, you could see that it shows how many failures you got and how many threats. Or it has a little chevron as advantage, and it has like a little. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just laughing because this is oftentimes my qualm with specialty dice, where it's like, you know.
Well, it's only because I'm not. It's down at the bottom. It says what it is. Successes or stars. So first up, you have any stars?
I have 2.
No, you don't.
I have one of
You don't have any stars. They look like 8-pointed stars.
Yes, I do.
You have an 8-pointed star?
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any chevrons? You don't. You've completely failed. We'll get to that in a second.
Are those the triangle-y ones?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, one of those.
All right. So you have how many successes? It's a little number in the corner.
There's two numbers.
Oh, you have none. Yeah, you look at the top for the no. Forget the dice.
Oh, okay.
Just look at the top. It looks like both of you failed dramatically.
Okay.
Right. So what's happening there is that your successes are being knocked out by the X's. The 8-pointed stars are being knocked out by the X's. When you roll on this,
I thought you were gaslighting me when I said I don't have 2 stars.
Yeah, I know you do. But you can see that you have 2 down at the bottom there. You see you have 2 X's on that one die.
Yeah, and then I've got the third one here.
And third one. And that third one is really what's generating anything for you, which is a threat and a failure. Right? So you fail with a consequence, right? Let me look real quick and I'll explain. You have a star and advantage, but I don't know why the advantage is not showing up for you because they don't get canceled out. But you have 2 threats and 2 failures. So you have 2. Why does it say 1-1?
I don't know.
That's weird. So you have a advantage. You have an advantage, but you have 2 threats, a failure, 2 failures and 2 threats is what you ultimately have left there. So then what we do is we say what happens, right? Now, perception checks are perception checks, right? But it depends on whether or not you see the ship where you're going, or do you have to take other means? In this case, I think you clearly don't spot the ship, right? Because both of you do not have any successes showing. You could use advantages to narrate little things that you do learn, right? It could be you do spot some sort of display console that you know is going to be able to tell you a little something. You could say, oh, but a janitor is walking by, or an engineer or somebody that you may be able to question, right? So advantages allow you to give you little bumps, if not success. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So those aren't canceled out by the X's?
They're not canceled out by the X's. No. The only thing that cancels each other out are the D8s. Oh. The only thing that cancels each other out. Okay.
Well, aren't these all?
I'm sorry. Is stars. It's 8-pointed stars, the success symbol, which you see down there, right? And the chevron. And the X, which is the failure.
Right.
See, failure and success.
Okay.
All right. You have super failures and super successes, which is triumph and despair. You see that? And then you have advantage and threat. And advantage and threat are ostensibly consequences and side effects. Advantage is good for you. You generally can narrate them. Threat are bad for you, and I generally narrate them. You need a star to not be canceled out in order to succeed at what you're trying to do.
Right.
But advantages allow you to narrate moving forward, and threats are consequences. For instance, I can use, so you have one threat, and I think you have a double threat. You have 2 threats.
Do I? Oh, those are threats.
Because you have 2 d8s
X's.
with threats on them.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say you definitely see traces of L1Z1X like manipulation here. You're not certain if it's political or they actively stole it, but you're relatively certain you see their fingerprints all over.
And I lost my leg to them and most of my teammates, so I'm probably getting paranoid immediately.
Immediately. This is how we're starting things.
Uh-huh.
You are just getting stressed. You're going to gain what's called a strain. All right. A strain is ostensibly mental stress. You can use advantages to remove strain.
Oh.
Right. And I can use threats to give you strain. So I'm giving you 1 strain. I'm giving you information that sort of sets you off.
Right.
Right.
Is there a way I can complain to the CEO who gave us this mission, or to his CEO? I'm probably pretty angry.
Okay.
I guess I'll look at you and say, I don't think the ship was just misplaced. This seems like, I don't know, I'm getting a bad feeling.
Yeah. Well, it seems like the inner workings of the council, especially when it comes to the L1s, is not quite as shut down as we thought. They're, at some point conspiring against us.
Do you want to keep looking for a ship here, or you're in with the council, right?
I don't think we can go back. We need to prove that we're able to succeed in, even these basic diplomatic missions. So failure is not an option.
They're not setting us up for success.
No. Well, my thoughts exactly. There's plenty of ships here, plenty of ships' captains and crews. They're coming and going. I have no doubt that one of these would be able to take us to the quadrant hex of our destination.
All right. After you, then.
I look up and down the strip of the landing docks. Does it look like there's a place where pilots and crew are sort of aggregating or socializing, or might be able to find some upstanding smugglers?
Yes.
One hairy, one handsome.
Do you think it's interesting that they picked me to go down, considering that I'm mostly trained and not asking questions? Put it that way.
Well, you watch my back and I'll watch you.
Oh, I will. I'm just saying I'm not sure they want this mission to succeed. But
like I said, this mission has to succeed, and I am more than eager to prove that a little setback like this is not going to keep us from being successful.
So you are able to requisition, or if you could attempt to requisition a Jacques Carapace class diplomatic corvette. It's a little bit slower, a little bit less state of the art than the
I look over and think,
class
my people, the Ja. There's a Corvette class over there that they would be able to help us out for sure. I'm sure I could convince them to take a detour.
You come upon the vessel, and several of your people that are milling about, seemingly. They're actually sitting around a hover table and playing some sort of, cultural game.
I'm just
some sort of tile game that they're sitting and like throwing stuff at and shouting and waving their arms.
It's Shah Jacks.
Yeah.
By Mahjong.
As they play. What do you do?
Well, I use our native tongue and address them a formal greeting.
what does your species look like inside that armor? I can't really tell from the turtles. Okay.
Turtle-ish heads, although I'm certainly in a mechanical sort of exosuit,
Right.
but have sort of a snapper turtle looking head But in terms of the way that I comport myself, I have a proper upbringing. So this is a crew of a ship, otherwise looked down my nose at to some extent. But I greet them in a traditional greeting, formal greeting. So I'm explaining to the crew, I'm a delegate from the Galactic Council. I'm here as a liaison to the Caleres. We are on a diplomatic mission and would like to negotiate transport to a particular X.
Herod's Truce, sorry.
Herod's Truce.
Herod's Truce is the name of the planet. One of the guys couldn't care less, is just annoyed that you're interrupting his game. The other one sort of runs up into the ship, like is clearly talking loudly, in the ship, and then comes back, followed by this very obvious old, scarred, such a Ja vet. He's got one eye. He's got some sort of cane, which is funny because he easily could have had some sort of cyber way of
right.
But he has this cudgel that he's sort of walking with, and he sort of eyes you up and down. You re-explain, this is the ship's captain.
Yeah.
See his colors emblazoned on his shell, and he
Hello, Long John.
And go ahead and make a negotiation check. And so what you're going to do is, whatever your negotiation is, you're going to use ability dice, right? So what's your negotiation dice?
Negotiation is, I've got a rank of 1 with 1 yellow, 2 green diamonds.
1 yellow, 2 green diamonds. So add those to your die pool. And then you're going to add 3 purple diamonds.
Is that for my presence?
No,
that's
difficulty.
Does the fact that it's presence do anything?
All right, so go ahead and roll the dice.
All right, bunch of dice here.
All right, you got 1 advantage. So it looks like what this is doing is...
So I've got 1 success and 3 advantages compared to 1 failure and 2 threats.
2 threat. It looks like the advantages and threats are canceling each other out, which, based on the rules, I don't think is supposed to happen.
Huh.
But
It's like a different edition or something?
I don't know. Let's just go with that. That's fine. So you have an advantage, but you don't have any successes, right?
Just the advantage, yeah. Because I guess the one
Because your success is canceled out.
Right.
And your advantages, you just have 1 advantage. I see what's going on there. Okay. You explain your situation. You go back and forth a little bit. And he says, this ship is, and he's saying this in his language.
Right. Someone's kind of staring blankly at him.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's universal translators. I think it's a little more interesting in this case if there's not, because a lot of these species are going to, in fact, know multiple languages. So we'll see if it matters. But he says to you, no, we don't bow to the Caleres. We're not toadies to the council. And you can tell that he must be like a nativist or something to that effect. And he sort of eyes you suspiciously. He says, but our shared blood requires me to tell you that I saw some of her kind make off with a vessel that had restraining clamps still attached. So they can't be far. They have to be.
So the vessel's been moved. Okay. And still with the restraining clamps?
So you guys have the command codes, but
Right.
they probably got like a hauler, like a big, to come out and like put it somewhere else until they can figure out how to bypass the command codes. I want to remind you, you weren't told that this was appropriated by the Federation of Sol.
Wait, what was appropriate? The ship?
The ship.
The ship. Remember, it was granted
Mhm.
by the Federation of Sol.
Yeah. Well, and he said that they'd made off with it too, so.
Didn't I see signs of L1Z, 1X or whatever. So that's not human. That's them fucking with us.
And you didn't see where it went or which direction?
No. But again, they can't be far.
Can't be far.
Probably somewhere in this complex.
Just got to hunt for them.
It's a big complex.
All right. So you've had two engagements trying to figure out where the hell your ship is. What's your next tactic? So far, you've attempted to just look around. You've attempted to try to. By the way, that fulfills your agenda. Just so you know. In a campaign, agendas are set up with benchmarks, much like many goal-oriented systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you need X so many benchmarks. The more benchmarks within your agenda, the higher the rewards at the end. You can actually gain more benchmarks by getting rewards now. Not now, but during character creation. So you could be like, well, instead of 3 benchmarks, I'm going to have 5 benchmarks. And that could start you with more money up front and other boons, which is kind of interesting. But in this case, it resolves it. For a game like this, that doesn't matter. It's going to give you access to like narrative things like an important position. It could give you access to a ship. It could give you access. You get 75 XP. So there's end of session effects to being able to resolve your agenda, right? This maybe was just a benchmark in your agenda, but you could see how broad they are. All you had to do is follow your own agenda of showing how cool you are. Even though you failed, then this sort of moves forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Would there be any sense in my trying to contact the humans at this point to let them know their ship is gone?
Yeah. Do you want to see who the current, like a local delegate of the Federation of Soul is maybe here? How might you...
I think my brothers as we walk away.
So like a consulate?
Well, you're kind of out of scope of being able to, like, you have to find what's going on here, right?
Maybe another soul ship. My impression are you humans don't have the same fraternity that the Ja would have.
Okay. So there is, you can sort of do a ping to a Soul cultural attaché that is in the area, whose name is Mirren.
Okay. Yeah, I know I have comms, so I can use that.
Yeah.
So I'll do that. Try to, be politic, although probably it's gonna, let through that I'm pretty irritated by the situation.
Are you posing yourself as Caleris, or you're posing yourself as Federation citizen? Who are you?
As a veteran of the Soul Federation?
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And maybe, name a couple conflicts that you had been, a part of, just contextualize.
Right. Soul survivor of whatever conflict it was.
Mirren says to you over the comm, I appreciate your vigilance in this matter. Why are you looking for my ship?
It's not on the berth that it's supposed to be at. And for that matter, I don't have definitive proof yet, but I have evidence of L1ZX involvement, disappearance. I'm not sure of that yet, but either way.
Are you part of the Caleris crew who was to attain said vessel?
Yes.
We have the command codes.
What are your cunning skills?
Survival, and that's it. I do have coercion, but that's willpower.
Yeah. What I want you to do is I want you to roll 2 cunning and 3 difficulty.
Yeah. So 2 cunning would be what? 2?
Just two ability dice, 3 difficulty dice. You do have story points here. If you want to, you could narrate away you're gaining an advantage, or perhaps you don't hear this conversation per se, but where you could use a story point, you give it to me, and you could upgrade one of those dice to a yellow die, which is a D12, which is a superior die type if you wanted to, because
yeah, I like to use my story, I guess, at this point. 'Cause I'd like to get a ship so we can get out.
well, you're actually like interacting with her and trying to glean a little information from your conversation. You know, she's being a little cagey. So you're going to give me one of those?
Sure.
The story points?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And so you now, instead of 2, you do 1 and 1. 1 ability die and 1 proficiency die.
Oh, success and advantage, it looks like.
Nice.
Yeah, success is the star one, yeah.
You can tell that, first off, she is surprisingly close. That you can tell from her signal and some data that you're seeing that she is within a certain distance, which is very clear. And you're definitely getting some derision off of her in terms of your mission and your affiliation, as she begins to sort of shut down and say, I don't know anything about that, which you know is patently false.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could continue to try to coerce her, or you could try to make another perception check or some sort of technology check that would allow you to trace, you know.
Yeah, no, I've got athletics, coercion, discipline, leadership, medicine, range, survival, and vigilance. So, no. I mean, I think her instinct would be try to push, like, I know you're lying kind of thing, like, you know.
And do you have negotiation?
No, like I said, coercion.
Oh, you have coercion? Yeah, you could coerce her.
Yeah. Like I'm a well-known veteran. God damn it. I don't know if she has political concerns or not, but if
she does. She's a cultural attaché.
Right. Yeah. Right? So, you know, be like, you don't want me to contact my whatever the equivalent of the VA is,
and let them know that you're skipping town when you should be doing your diplomatic.
All right. Do you want to do that? Do you want to threaten her with some sort of
like a soft threat, like threatening her life?
Call our representative.
Right. I'm gonna be a Karen.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. So again, you're gonna whatever the dice it says to roll there.
Okay. So 2 yellow and
again, she is a cultural attaché. She's not a pushover, a social pushover. So it is going to be 3 difficulty dice.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a blue D6, a boost die, because for your success and your advantage from the previous. So
3 purple.
You carry that. You anger her so much that she threatens you to come get the ship on berth B6.
All right.
And then as she's basically hanging up, you hear her say, like, you know, lock and load, boys, or something like that.
This is something I can actually handle, so I'm just gonna, you know, take my case, my weapon case, and just be like, yeah, I know where it is. Just tell you.
Is this how the soul handle their, you know?
Not usually, but she's apparently got something, either someone leaning on her or she's just, you know, a bitch, one of the two. Either way.
So you actually, as you approach, you are met by gunfire as you approach the berth.
Like at us?
Yes, at you. You know that they were probably warning shots of sort. They do bounce pretty harmlessly against security walls, you know, near you. And you could see a couple light paramilitary types. They're in tight enough garb. It's very difficult with how, like, visorless helmets that you can't tell what species they are, but they're lithe humanoids. And you see that, you know that they're part of a outfit of repo, literally designed to repo ships.
Mm-hmm.
They're this crew until the party who hires them can collect the vessel. there are 2 of them who are stationed at the birth door.
All right. I'll be like, what's the story, guys? Before we all start shooting, perhaps we should have a conversation.
I mean, and I would err towards diplomacy as well in this, despite their threat. I think we should start with that.
I mean, I have my gun, but nevertheless.
Well, I'm assuming you're all shouting this. Poke your head out. This is, we've been hired by the Federation of Sol. Let the suits talk it out.
I mean, it just seems strange. I was assigned this mission, and then the ship I'm supposed to go to the mission on it disappeared.
And is repoed.
Yeah.
With the dampeners still attached. So, I don't know, like the repoing the lockdown ship doesn't make any sense.
That happens all the time, right?
Right.
Because you have the command codes. They don't have the command codes. So they have technology. They have basically these big freight, pieces that physically pick the ship up and move it to a, so.
Yeah, but I find it hard to believe that there's any rightful reason for them to repo the ship. So they are mistaken and certainly on the wrong side of.
Are you going to tell them that?
Yeah.
I assume you're having this conversation with your compatriots.
But loud enough for them to hear.
Yeah.
So you're pontificating. They said we have our papers, and by the way, they're through like speakers, right? Because you can't see their,
Yeah, I imagine my suit's got. I mean, I have comms. I assume my suit's got something like that.
Sure. We have our papers.
All right. Well, let's see them.
You're under no authority to. We are told to protect the property of the Federation of Sol with force.
The Federation of Sol, in this context, is obligated to provide the resources needed to the Galactic Council under the Colaris provisions for an important mission.
Hey, we're just doing our jobs. Bugger off.
Well, we're just trying to do our jobs also. Unfortunately, our jobs require the ship to get there. So either give us information of a boss or someone we can talk to who actually can do anything, or I'll just go take my frustration out another way. No one wants that.
Do you want to use coercion again?
Sure.
Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. These guys aren't quite as difficult. Again, you could use a story point to upgrade your coercion if you wanted to. Changing an ability die to a proficiency die, the green to the yellow.
I'm going to hold the story point.
Yeah, I want to keep our last story point. Yeah.
All right.
Just see what happens. 3 advantages, looks like.
3 advantage, but no successes. You have a crap ton of advantage. You have some threat which they cancel down.
Right. That's
a failure. Yeah. So you have no successes.
But 3 advantages.
Yeah. They're not backing down. What advantages do you want to take? How are you benefited without succeeding?
Maybe they give us the contact information for a manager that's
it's the attaché.
Yeah,
it's a cultural attaché.
It's the same person.
Yeah.
Unless you want to take them out and just use the advantage to get closer to them.
Yeah, you could use the advantage to say that you convince them to show you the paperwork to get up close and personal. That they're not giving you the ship, but you're being put at an advantage. What do you want that advantage to look like?
You want to go?
I want to be closer.
Okay, then we'll do that. We'll use the kind of cover of us. Needing to look over the papers and whatnot to get close to them and position ourselves well.
Sure.
Literally, yeah.
Sure. What is the verbiage? What do you say to them? Do you say something that drops their guard? Do you say, do you recognize one of them under the helmet as being Federation or somebody that you served with? What is the thing
this is
that you say?
Yeah, right. So this was a coercion.
It's coercion.
I kind of like the idea of from Sol and I served that.
Do they recognize your gun? And they're like, hey, is that this is your opportunity. The dice are meant to give you the ability to add narrative that, you know,
I like that actually them noticing my robotic leg replacement, and then like kind of like looking up at me and be like, wait a second, like I think I saw you on the newsreels a little while ago about like you're a space combat marine, like
right.
we're just
repo men.
right, exactly. Yeah.
We were probably hired from a local gang to, you know, work this legitimate job. You know?
Right.
We're just thugs. But one of them recognizes your leg and recognizes your stature. Yeah, I like the idea that maybe you were on a hollow or something to that effect, and they're like, look, this is all on the up and up, and brings up a hollow of their paperwork and a signed signatory, and it's a symbol of the cultural attaché with some Federation. This is apparently her ship that she granted them. So it's pretty common for the Caleres to rightfully commandeer vessels as part of like a service, sometimes part of a consequence, like as part of a fine. Well, you have to put so much resources towards missions for us. It's how they carry their budget.
No, they say the parking authority.
Yeah. So basically the parking authority. Use whatever authority they have in the council to use political leverage to gain what they need when dollars are short. So Mirren is clearly feels a way that her vessel was commandeered, and therefore has until she can cover all of the political means, has stalled the Caleres' efforts to use her ship. So you guys are there, you're talking to these guys.
Yeah, and explaining to them this obviously says that you've got a ship here that is owed to the Caleres responsibility, and you've now got an obligation to take us to the planet where we have to do our diplomatic mission. I mean, do you want these guys to come with us? It's funny because I actually have a skill where I can subtly talk to someone else while I'm talking to
fun.
first person. Yeah,
awesome.
A subtle.
Awesome. So you're saying that, but you're dropping clues.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I guess so.
I like the idea that you guys are having a conversation while you're having a conversation.
Guess we could take some hostages. Why not?
That's what I'm saying. It's either that or I beat the hell out of these guys.
Yeah.
So,
and consider this, simple shuttle mission a fulfillment of your obligation. I mean, you want those dampeners taken off. We're the ones with the command codes. And you take us on the mission, you bring us back, your obligation's fulfilled, you get your ship back.
Right.
I don't understand why you're even...
Are you just using that as a tactic? Okay. Yeah, they're like, look, if we take those dampeners off, we don't get paid. Are you guys going to pay us?
You can get paid when you get back.
The whole goal of taking the ship is to not have the Caleres use it.
I'm misrepresenting the document then, right? That they have in front of us.
The document is the owner of the ship, the Federation of Sol Cultural Attaché, is her ship. The Caleres have used political means to get her to allow you to use the ship.
And she's not letting us.
She's trying to clear it up on political channels and is holding the ship until she can.
So these guys don't care about her stance on it. They're just following the orders
that she hired repo men to collect the ship and move the ship and keep it until such a time as she can take her ship back.
These guys don't have a dog in the fight other than
they want to get paid.
What they're getting paid.
Right.
Yeah.
You could also conceivably, and I would say somebody else would have to use coercion, right? You could threaten them like, is this worth, you know what I mean? Your life kind of idea. They are thugs.
If we kill them, are we able to release the ship though? And they
100%. You have the command codes.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you could have kind
They're
of
the ones
snuck
having a hard
by
time
them,
with
if you
the ship.
kind of like snuck by them, you could have just gotten in the ship and drove off.
Yeah. Well, they started shooting at us right away.
Right, because the consequence of your threats
Right.
was to that they knew you were coming.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Sure.
But now that they're right in front of us, I think we should just take them out.
Okay. So you said we're not going to do combat, but apparently we are.
You're obviously not reading the title correctly. If you look very carefully, right here,
All right.
grab these.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to say that you have enough advantage dice that you're going to, they're lowered their guard. You're having a reasonable conversation with the two of them.
I would not call this reasonable by any stretch.
I'm going to say, that you have them at a disadvantage so that you're going to gain a boost die to your hit roll. So if you're fighting it out, let's see here.
So I use my weapon dice pool
Yes.
on top of the boost die.
Yep. And they're going to do 3 dice. Yeah. So it's going to be 3 dice in the difficulty. It's your die pool plus the boost die.
Do each of us take an action, or is it
You will.
right?
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if it was a system where you can do like one per team, or if it's per character.
It'll be per character. Gun roll.
Okay.
This is the swing.
What you get?
So I've got 3 successes and 1 threat.
All right.
So
Well, 3 successes. What's the damage of your weapon? Do you see?
8.
It's 8.
Oh my god.
Good Lord. Their wound threshold is 5. So, and the 2 successes, the extra success actually pumps up your damage to 9, which completely sort of, overwhelms them. The threat, how many? 1 threat?
1 threat, yeah.
Okay. So there are certain abilities that can get triggered with threats and advantages. I would consider their threats an advantage. They could conceivably do something called like a brutal takedown. But you only got 1. You needed 2. They needed 2 for you to do that. So, you easily take 1 out of the equation. There's some, I imagine there's some deep resonating hum as, I don't know what the, like using gravity to ostensibly attract the mace to the person,
Yeah.
and they just kind of go flying. What do you want to do?
I'm firing with my carbine. Since it ignores 5 points of the target's soak.
Oh, good Lord.
That's why I try to talk to them. Just because they're human, I felt a certain kinship.
Right.
But
well, this is different. He is actually going to try to use brawl to disarm you. Good. You're close enough, so you're gonna do.
Yeah, like I figure I'm a couple steps away, but he could move. Move and grab.
Yeah. And you're also gonna add a setback die. They're pretty menacing, like their whole outfit, and they're pretty brazen, and so you're gonna get 3 your die pool, whatever your die pool
Just
says.
just the same as everything else. It's
Yeah.
2 yellows and 1 green.
You are gonna get a boost from being at you're at an advantageous point, and then you're gonna get 3 difficulty and a setback.
Just
2 successes. Nice.
Yeah.
What's the damage of your weapon?
it's so it ignores 5 soak and it's 4 damage.
4 damage. All right. Well,
Yeah.
you do more damage than their soak value. So, anything pithy to say from this poor guy?
Probably I'm opening up on this gun right in front of him. So
Yeah.
I just kind of gets blown away.
Yeah.
I even say, Sorry about that. I'm saying it to whoever else is standing. Kind of.
I don't feel sorry for them at all. I mean, I just continue to walk through them.
I don't really.
I mean, it's just those two guys. So
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was 3 or how many there were.
there are 2 more on the ship, but after they see this interaction, they like run.
Yeah, that's it. Like my right shoulder
has been running too. Like, you guys have no right to be here and to keep the Calaris from its official business.
You think you hear one guy on comms being like, contract terminated as he runs away.
I want to send can you send text messages? I'm thinking of sending a text message to the person whose ship this is, the woman. Be like, thanks for the ship, smiley face. It's like,
Calaris appreciates your cooperation.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Do either of you have astrocartography?
No.
I was hoping the ship could do that.
We want to assume there's some sort of auto systems on here. Otherwise, it's really stupid to assign 2 people to the ship who can't fly, right?
Maybe one of the repo men can. Let's
gotta make a an average intellect check, please.
Both of us?
Yep.
Average is 1 difficulty?
2.
2.
Sorry, 2.
2 advantages and 2 X's.
Well, the controls here couldn't be all that difficult.
You know that Rules Truce is classified as a non-aligned world as part of an act of the Council. This means unilateral investigation of significant discoveries there by any Council faction are barred. However, the L1ZX were admitted to the Council after the law's passage, likely would not recognize it. You know that the L1ZX generally do not obey the Council's edicts. So technically no one, you nor the L1ZX, are allowed to be there, for investigative purposes. But both of you are being illegal, ostensibly.
Yeah.
Kind of idea. You got advantage, but not, that, you've seen firsthand that the technology that they wield, you are loath to allow them any further advantage, or conceivably you could be concerned and driven towards this mission because you don't want this technology to get, into their hands.
That makes sense.
That the L1 have sometimes even space and time warping technology abilities. You are concerned what this Imperial era technology might be and what it means to the L1. Takes you about 3 weeks to get there. During the journey, you take turns manning parts of the ship, and it's largely a pretty easy travel. There's nothing particular going on. You share meals, you get to know each other.
Are there replicators, or is it like a standard ration kind of thing?
I think standard rations.
Okay.
Do you really eat that?
Yeah, protein bars get pretty old after a while, but it's not eating or cannibalism.
I want both of you to make either a discipline or a willpower check.
Okay.
If you don't have discipline.
That I do have.
Which one?
Discipline.
Discipline, okay. To see how you manage after about 2.5 weeks in.
Okay. What's the difficulty?
2.
Okay. 2 advantage, no, a success or failure.
1 success.
1 success, all right. Go ahead and narrate how you guys manage this trip. Is this something you're used to? You don't succeed, so you don't succeed, which means you're going to take strength.
I think it's more like this sort of my trauma resurfacing from fighting the L1X and that. Then because I'm used to
are you having nightmares?
Yeah, sort of thing. I'm used to long ship travel and I'm not stressed by that at all, or even the mission. Combat is common to me, but I'm definitely on edge. I have been on edge about their involvement, like you said. So I think it's about that. I'm having nightmares and jittery and probably hearing voices,
How do you feel about this? You could hear down the hall, like screams in his sleep, and you could see that she's sweaty when she wakes up, and clearly getting circles under her eyes, and so.
Although I'm also like really like together, and like if you ask me about it, I'll be like, no.
Yeah, like when you come out, you're fine. And I think I'm going to take those opportunities when you come out. I'm not pretending to be fine when we're in the common spaces, like the mess room, and or just sitting, in the the cockpit or forward, just looking out, through the windows, the passing stars, to talk to you about the Calaris mission, try and find some common ground, but also trying to get you to be more, to think about the Calaris mission and the mission at hand, and how, something like this could actually be pretty impactful. My character, Chelix, knows a lot about, ancient empirical Lazax technology. So this is an opportunity for us as a duo, to really show our effectiveness to the Calaris group. So I'm just trying to give you a little boost of optimism on the one hand, but also sort of rah Calaris.
Yeah, and anything that aids in putting the L1X down, L1Z, it's too many letters and numbers.
L1Z1X.
Yeah. Putting them down is always a good thing to me. Takes the edge off a little bit, knowing that you're on the same side.
Cool.
We've all got past battles to deal with, but can't let that impact the opportunities for future victories.
Who rules truce? As you approach it, your ship's viewports and sensors provide them with a closer impression. You can plainly see that the planet is tidally locked with its star.
So one side is like scorched, basically.
Yep. Yeah. Basic sensor data tells you that the day side's temperatures are lethal to most sentient species without serious environmental gear. And the night side is equally perilous.
Right, so it's just along the edge.
Yeah, almost no visible light and temperature rivaling the coldest places in the galaxy. Between the two sides lies, as you pointed out, a termination zone, where shadow from the planet's curvature provides permanent twilight illumination. The sensors return atmospheric biosignatures with this band along a large artificial construct at a point in the north hemisphere, which emits a regular navigational beacon pulse. There is, in fact, a merchant gazetteer that you find that, over the 3 weeks, you can kind of go over and learn a little bit more about this. Native population is approximately 5 million sentients from 3 different species, the Letnev, the Hylar, and the Gashlai. They are descendants of crews of enemy fleets marooned here in a battle during the Twilight Wars, which was what got rid of the L1, the Laris.
That's interesting that the whole planet would be cordoned off.
Yeah.
And, like I'm thinking about this is Antarctica, except you're not allowed to, to travel there.
Yeah.
There's sort of an international understanding of a travel ban, but there's 5 million souls here.
Yeah, the population's concentrated in one large city called the Span, which traverses the habitable band over a shallow sea and is built into sectors that match each species' environmental needs. The Span and planet are ruled by a tripartite commission, which each species designates a representative to attend, and the planet was brought back into FTL contact with the rest of the galaxy by the Hassan traders a few years before. Hassan are the Leonine. Mining activities also take prospectors to the dark side for rules truce. Your ship breaks atmosphere within the twilight sky of the narrow 20-kilometer wide habitable band. It's so narrow that the temperatures vary drastically from baking to frozen between its day and night edges. You make for the city that stretches across the band, appropriately dubbed the Span. Nearing the city, you can make out a long, tapering, alloyed bulk of what was once a warship. Now it's molten superstructure surrounded by kilometers of additional civic structures built up and around it. much of it supported like a bridge above the shallow sea beneath. You circle lazily once, that put down in an open pad at the corner of a modest landing platform connected by bridge to the main edifice. This is a rustic affair despite its status as a relatively recent addition to the span. Its landing bays floored with metal, obviously reclaimed from this ancient Letnev cruiser. Letnev are, by the way, sort of elves. They have this, they're taller, they're wide.
Space elves, so Vulcans.
Space elves and ears,
It's interesting. And the Letnev are not among the native 3 species that are here?
They are. The Letnev are one of the 3.
Oh, that's just, okay.
It's a fairly challenging descent for your ship. You guys are doing what you can to control the vessel in this rustic setting. You make your way down the gangplank. The smell of rust and machine oil rises to meet you. A sturdy Letnev officer in a crisp uniform stands before you, flanked by 3 subordinates in similar garb. The officer addresses you, her voice steady and businesslike. Welcome to Rule's Truce. I am Captain Zoran of the Port Authority, and report to Margave Ortlov. As you could see, our humble port does not get many travelers from the shining center of the galaxy. What is your purpose for visiting Rule's Truce? I want to remind you that standard investigations, not to say that you have to lie, but standard investigations of the Calaris or the Council are not yet sanctioned.
And I assume we talked about this kind of in our 3-week or whatever travel of what we were going to say.
Yeah, or we could just quickly
to them, but
go back and forth. Do we want to take the honest approach?
No.
Or the deceitful approach?
Not entirely honest. I wonder if we could just be kind of deep space travelers who are kind of passing through. Because I was going to say we could try to be merchants, but we can't really pass off being merchants with this ship. We don't have any supplies.
The ship itself, just 2 of us, we're just taxiing the ship through.
But if it makes sense that we're, kind of deep space travelers and we've been at space for a long time, I'm just wanted to, this is in our route and wanted to,
on our way back to.
Right. Just pass them through.
Yeah, sounds good. Why don't you make a deception roll?
You want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's average, so it's 2.
Oh, sorry. Discipline, not deception. I'm getting that wrong.
Deception.
Yeah, I have discipline, but I don't have deception.
2 threats.
2 threats.
Okay.
The Letnev are not as inscrutable as the Hinarian, the green people that are the custodians of the Calaris. They're sort of the administrators of the Calaris, the Winarians. That's who basically sent you on this mission. The Letnev are a little more passionate, and you can, she doesn't hide her derision very well, but she's like, very well, don't cause any trouble in my city.
Oh, well, just need to fuel up and maybe get some food that isn't a protein bar.
But unfortunately, she also doesn't give you a lot of information. Mm-hmm. She doesn't. So by and large, this is an investigative, scenario. I think I'm going to go with the scenario as is. You have a number of ways to sort of approach this. You could conceivably, I'm going to give you a couple options, but you can, of course, if you have some other tack, ultimately, you're looking for information on this piece of technology, right? Where you would acquire said information is up to you. Now, you do have the ability or the access to possibly visit the commissioners to see what they know, the 3 members of the triumvirate. You could see if you can find Calaris contact that sent the message in the first place.
Oh, there was a contact here.
That's who sent it, but it was their final transmission, so you don't know what that means. Or you could maybe try some technological means to find the technology one way or the other. There's a trade sector, there's a surveyor's, there's obviously the ubiquitous bar or two. So what do you think you want your tack? Now, normally if this were me, I would have an investigative track, right? Where we would role play, you would visit various places, you would go certain places, and when you've filled out a little bar with successes and advantages and so on and so forth, then bing, you find the MacGuffin. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and in this case, the MacGuffin is the technology, which presumably is ancient.
Right.
So, I think we've got a couple hints in terms of the direction. And I also think that I could convince people to guide us in the right direction without even necessarily, being explicit about where I'm looking.
I think I'm going to follow your lead on this just because of my skills and inclinations are definitely much more to be your bodyguard, basically, than, for you to have
I think that's actually totally fits into in line with how you probably what your character is like, right?
How we approach it. Yeah.
You're a liaison for the Caleres, and this is your bodyguard.
Yeah.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
So what's your tack? We're not gonna complete the scenario necessarily, but just maybe one or two scenes I think is appropriate.
I think because I don't want this to be scrutinized.
Okay.
So I think this is more the antiquities, black market type.
looking for Greedo or whatever.
Looking for the person that has the gizmo or access to the relics. And the description of this city is pretty notable in that it's sort of built on the bones of a giant cruiser ship.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
One section
has got its own history to it. So I'm going to kind of take that as the lead, but also just sort of the curiosity of there's sort of the new city that, you can see outside of it, but I'm curious as to what is built within it, that you sort of is built on the framework of the old cruise ship. Head to the dark and grimy spaces more than the, shiny.
Sounds good to me. I think that makes sense.
Kind of make a streetwise roll for me to see if you could find anybody who might be purveyors of that sort of thing.
What's the difficulty?
I think because you got nothing from Zarin and you're kind of going in this dark, I'm going to say it's hard.
Okay. So kind of make our way into the, I was going to narrate before I make the roll, just make our way into the passageways of, the winding, dark, locations. See if I can't find that storefront that again might be selling something on the front.
Are you going to be talking to people? Do we see a little montage of you asking for vagaries?
Just generally, the age of, if you're going out looking for antiques, but I want something from the 17th century, where I'm finding everything from the 19th century. Right. Kind of engage them and be like, oh, what's the oldest thing that you've come across? Have you seen anybody else with anything that's even older? Maybe.
Now, keep in mind, your mace is Imperial era. Yeah. You have a Larix mace.
Well, it gives me some credit.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, go ahead.
I also have annuals of the custodians, which is a knowledge base. I imagine it's technology, but it gives me access to, in game terms, a boost to knowledge checks about the history, culture, and technology of the Lazax Empire. But just in general,
I'm going to give you a boost because you're carrying a mace that's clearly Imperial.
So making the roll and doing pretty well. So I've got 4 successes.
Ooh,
wow.
And 3 threats.
Oh my God. Okay. That's perfect.
I'm in the seedy spot, so the threats
awesome.
are probably, I'm getting some people, some
sure.
some followers.
A number of stalls in the trade sector fly the colors of a Hassan house. These stalls have samples of luxury goods imported by the Hassan to Harol's Truce. How all of the stalls are currently closed, and the Hassan who usually operate them are actually gathered at the center of the plaza. So this is sort of like an import-export business, but the stall itself are closed, and the Hassan are all sort of gathered.
Mingle
Go there, right?
with them. I mean, they're still the ones with the expertise.
Right.
Sure.
So, strike up conversations, but also say to you, I mean, the L1 were interested in this as well.
Apparently.
So we need to be on the lookout for their fingerprints.
You meet a elderly Hassan woman who seems to know a fair number of people, who is greeting people and such, and they have splotches of color on one shoulder, and she has this bin. It's like a wicker bin that she has a paw in, and her paw is just orange at this point. And she brings it up, and when she greets somebody, she splashes this sort of indelible dust
Cheeto dust
onto their shoulder, and she says something in Hassan, and she approaches you two, and she says, "I am Ryla. Are you looking to trade with the House of the Shaded Cliffs?"
I'm looking for trading in antiquities.
That's what these, And she says, "We are mourning the passing of Skira, an elder of our community."
I'm sorry for the loss to yours and your pride.
Terrible thing. She was murdered in a robbery gone wrong.
What were they trying to steal?
I looked sideways at you physically.
I'm like, what were they trying to steal? I'm not going to say a lot to them, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's clearly uncomfortable with this concept. Like, she drips with derision or suspicion over the idea of this just being a robbery. They're currently, we're celebrating her life and reading her final testimony.
are people looking into her, investigating what happened?
That will be something that I'm certain some would take up.
I would hope
after the ceremony.
I'm an outsider, I know, but it seems sus.
Majorly sus.
But I'm happy to talk to you about it afterwards if you're so interested in that. The House of the Shading Cliffs will be opening up their doors after the ceremony to do any trading. Such, if you want to participate, I'm happy to sanctify you to listen to the ceremony, or you can go to the hearth and she gives you basic directions on the ceremony goes on. It's, as you listen to what's going on, it's very clear that this is, these are,
Everybody's upset about it.
well, yes, but there's a lot of wailing and stuff, but
No, I mean like pissed off.
it's not going to be a quick process.
Yeah. Well, I asked her, would it be appropriate for a non-Hassan to receive your blessing?
I want you to make a presence roll for me, or anything that could, in a charm. Charm is the skill, if anybody has charm.
Charm is exactly where I was going with this.
Yeah.
That is my...
Let's see how she, what she thinks about your approach.
So I have an ambassador's raiment.
Okay.
So that gives me a boost
Awesome.
on my first charm of the scene.
Yeah.
And I'm also very adept at, so I get 2 proficiency die.
It's going to be average. It's going to be 2, difficulty 2.
And, I'm hoping this extends my credibility.
You add 1 setback die for one of the threats that you acquired your last round.
Oh, because there's somebody looking over our shoulder. Yeah. Oh, man.
All successes and advantages?
Just one success and 1 advantage.
1 success and 1 advantage.
At the end, yeah.
So, 2 things. First off, you see that you have a tale of one of Zaren's people. Sort of like in this environment, particularly, it's like, wandering around in a uniform. Remember, all of Zaren's people wear uniforms. It's like, you look over and they're like, normally in a normal day, they would have lots to look at, right? And they could be talking to people, but because of the ceremony, they don't really have anywhere to go. And they weren't expecting that, So they're like, But no, she is endeared by you. She is like, no, we would be honored to have you. You do not know Sakura, but I appreciate your interest in participating in our ceremony. And I have a good feeling about you. She does eye your gun a little bit, maybe,
I probably have it holstered in my back, not holding it.
Yeah.
But I'll even explain. I'm like, I'm his bodyguard.
She's like, and she's pretty affable. She's like, oh, okay, well, these are dangerous times. And she slaps each of your shoulders.
I'm wanting to say I'm not really a touchy-feely person, but trying not to say it to not offend her. I don't like this.
It's just cheetah dust.
She says some stuff in the Hassan tongue, and she says there's, and she gives you a few. She's like, oh, Lita can help you with any questions. And there's this young child that is her granddaughter.
Yeah.
The undersecretary is interested in participating. And she's like, okay. And, goes on and says, this is what they're saying. This is what they're doing. There is people walking around with baskets that have some food in them. They might even offer some wine, and things like that. It is a long ceremony, so they're feeding the people. This is a big community helping each other, and so on and so forth.
Well, I'm glad we were assigned a child because it'll be a little bit less conspicuous of the child. So as we're kind of going through the crowd with the child, showing us these things, I'm not so caught up in the ceremony as much as I'm curious to find out more about the death of this merchant. Mm-hmm. So I asked her, by chance, I imagine after everybody gets back and opens up all of their booths, there'll be one booth that's empty now, that will not be stationed. Where is that booth? Where was Scara's booth? Is that where the robbery took place?
She points to it, and you could see it has some different raiment, different colors that are, some sort of signal, that it's
people are grieving.
Yeah, that people are grieving, and that it's closed for some reason. You don't have to be a rocket science to be able to understand why it's different, And she says, yeah, just points that out. The girl seems sad, but not weeping. It's a shame. Skira was nice, that.
What kind of things did she sell?
Spices. They're
not secret alien artifacts.
they're actually giving out all of her belongings right now. This is literally in other cultures a reading of the will. Mm-hmm. And all of her goods and things like that are being distributed to the community as per. Through this whole thing, you see that Lita every once in a while, like, will shush you guys because she wants to hear if her name's being called for stuff that she's interested in, you know, various knickknacks or a type of spice her mother really wants, or, you know, stuff like that. Otherwise, she's happy to just jaw with you guys and tell you stuff that she knows, which quite honestly is not an enormous amount.
Right. Good. But on the other hand, I figure asking her questions are less likely to draw suspicion than anyone else. So there's that.
You do know that she did hang out with Skira some time ago, and Skira seemed, out of this whole interaction, Skira seemed sort of put off, was not her normal jovial self, was after talking to some Winu. The Winu are the green people. Mm-hmm. And apparently she met with some sellers, and the meeting didn't sit right with her. She doesn't know anything much beyond that.
Would the L1 be at 1X?
L1 Z1X.
L1 Z1X have any distinguishing characteristics? Because
yes.
She wouldn't.
So
we should ask her. We'll ask her.
So the Larix were originally a four-armed race. Mm-hmm. Now they are a four-armed race festooned with technology, stripped, like the technology often sucks much of their vitality away. So they're often gaunt or almost skeletal. So
I'll just ask her outright. Has she seen anyone matching this description? A four-armed stranger who would not have otherwise been here normally?
No, not that she's seen, but she's not really allowed to go much farther than these stalls. So
yeah.
Now there is a point in time where a final piece is the officiant says there are a number of pieces that are being provided to those outside the clans. And, you know, there is a Shah tradesman who's there, a merchant who, you know, has provided something and so on and so forth. At some point in time, they're like, is anybody here as representatives of the Lore Master?
Have we even heard that name or title used before?
Do either one of you want to make a streetwise roll?
It's not a thing I have.
I haven't. Okay. Well, and I'm also thinking I could probably fill this streetwise role. Can I just go ahead and claim to be the Lore Master? Can I just claim to be the Lore Master? I'm going to take it as if this was the lore of the Latex Empire. Can I just say
well, hold on. Before you do that, if somebody wants to make it...
that's what I'm saying. I thought maybe you were suggesting the streetwise to determine if we thought we could be the Lore Master. I'm just saying I would just try it. So that's what I was going for.
I'm rolling to determine if you heard a thing that I've already told you.
Okay.
Gotcha. And what's the difficulty?
2.
1 success.
1 success.
1 penguin language.
The name of the Wienerian custodian his title was Lore Master.
Okay.
Yeah, we represent the Lore Master. Sure.
The item is a fine brass vial of spices from the sun world of Kumdorn. Some
filled with spices.
How do you receive the gift? What do you say? What do you?
Well, I think I want everybody in this room to recognize that we're here. So I'll go up, and if there's a riser of sorts, I'm comfortable getting up on the riser, address the audience as I say, and I'm happy to accept this offering in what's his name's honor. The person who died. Skira's and Skira's honor, and may her memory live long in all of our hearts and mains.
While I was giving the speech, I'm kind of looking at the crowd, seeing if anyone is like, seems to be scoping you out. Who's like, we already have one person following us, so I want to see if anyone else is kind of eyeing you for as a target.
I'm more getting allies.
Yeah.
Hoping with most of these.
So you don't see anything particular other than
Nothing suspicious.
the Zarin officer who's just sort of hanging out.
He's still there.
in the back. He's like, he's rolling his eyes. But great. So you walk away. It's probably a good half hour or so before this stalls reopen. People solemnly greeting each other, talking. Things go more or less, maybe a little more long-faced, but, there's some music that starts playing. There's hawkers again. A lot. There was this ring of people that stayed outside the courtyard that are just kind of waiting for it to reopen. The Zarin officer among them. So eventually people start, and it takes another hour or so to really get back into the swing of what's going on. But you are currently now holding an urn.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
But Spice, do you have an idea what this urn is for?
No, I must imagine it's the type of thing that Zarin would have also been selling. So something like this got him into hot water. I wonder if of a nature of something similar that that got him killed.
I don't know.
Her killed, rather. I thought maybe we could investigate the area, but I don't know if that's really going to.
No, if it's like a stall, it's probably not anything.
And now that stall is empty. Like
Right.
all of her wares have been,
Right.
distributed.
Maybe when we're not being looked at by the mourners, I might want to investigate this urn and contents.
Where do you want to do that? How do you want to do it? Do you want to just go off into an alley?
Yeah, go back to
Do
the
you
ship,
wanna
or you
go
might
back
just
to
do
the
it
ship? Do you want to
Well,
go
we mentioned him in
the hearth? Yeah.
Yeah, let's go get a room nearby.
Okay.
It's a place that I can store this, carry it around. But
The hearth is an eatery of sorts. One of the few single-story buildings in the plaza. The building is filled with guests who partake of nutrition and gossip in equal measure.
I'll be
Pleasant,
happy to get some real food
Right.
too.
Exactly.
pleasant warmth exudes from within, although the kitchen itself is quite sweltering. So many guests are seated at tables that surround it.
It's more of an eatery than an inn.
Yeah, it's an eatery. So, but many races are in here interacting with one another. Probably less Letnev here. Not that the Letnev, this place might be a little too down to earth, for many of the Letnev, kind of idea.
Yeah.
You do, let's see, any questions you have before you find a table and dig into this thing?
No, I'm saying we use the opportunity of the table to dig into this thing on the table.
All right. You could find something that's, pretty easy to put your backs to everybody else. What do you want to do?
Or, just to look around and be paying much attention.
Right. It's also my opportunity
To start by taking the spice that's in it, and I've got an iron gullet, so I'll just put the spice on my food.
Okay.
See what that does.
Awesome.
Well, this will be interesting.
Spice, I guess.
If you
Let's see what it tastes like.
if worms start bursting out of your chest.
Protein pellets. But then I'll also take a utensil of sorts and start digging around in the spice, kind of looking to see if I can uncover the bottom of it, see if there's anything in the inside of the urn.
Sounds good. What do you want to be doing while he's doing this?
Probably it's like watching him do that, kind of like both curiously and like a little concerned about what might happen, and enjoying the food, because I was complaining earlier about the bar. So
Yeah, sounds good. All right, great. In fact, that is actually not far for hard for you to find. That at the bottom you find a data chip.
guess we will have to take it back to the ship. So I think we should just finish up our meal and thank them and head back to our ship. That's probably what I would suggest anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we got to take back the ship. Sorry. I was reading some
Sure.
Yeah.
On your trip back, you do
We should try and
notice...
lose what's his face.
If he's following us still, yeah.
You want to lose him?
Yeah.
All right. In the process of losing your Zarin, not Zarin, your probably a Hylar, also equally funny as to why it's not, inconspicuous at all. Lose your Hylar tail. You do manage to pick up another tail.
Jesus.
Of 3 Winnows. They're the green people. They're very... Winnow they have slightly more oblong heads. They're green, and if you look closely, you could see that their faces or their skin made of scales. But they're fine scales. You can't normally tell. But they are heavily modified. They're heavily cybernetically enhanced.
Wait a minute, hang on. I'm still thinking the
It was, in fact, Winnow that Lita said Skira had met with that were buyers she was unsettled by.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to try to lose them? You want to confront them? Or you want to try to get back to the ship quickly?
Yeah, I don't want them following us back to the ship, so I think we'd be better off confronting them. Maybe just playing our cover, as it were, and saying, asking them for trade goods.
You,
And I think they're connected with the L1Z.
they reek of what's called the Necron virus, which is a L1 virus that sort of subsumes.
Yeah. So now I'm going to kind of, under my breath to you, say, these 3 need to be taken out sooner than later.
Get them to a place where, you can be alone with them.
Yeah, I want to try to lead them into a situation where where it's narrowing or something like that. So I kind of trap them to to kind of reverse ambush them.
And there's some sort of sense of what would your signal be? So what was it? Get 'em, Ray?
So I make an owl call and you're like, what is that? I don't know what an owl is.
and you attack the adherents of Sid. And I think we're gonna end there.
Cool.
Do you want to know what the fallen are, little one? In a sense, they are angels, but not the angels your mom imagines she prays to. Brass trumpets picnicking in the clouds. In their true essence, they are great swirling engines of wing and blood, fiery eyes that peer around the corners between worlds. Dark, radiant things conjured from fresh battlefields. A Frankenstein's Valkyrie, forever crashing to Midgard. What grief demands their hate? What vast cannibal hunger?
Welcome to the Fallen Cycle. This is a universe full of secrets, waiting for those brave or foolhardy enough to seek them out. Discover more about the myth-punk Fallen Cycle universe at fallencycle.com.
So there you go. That is the Genesys system specifically, or Genesys system with Twilight Imperium specifically.
Interesting. What else is Genesys used for?
So it has it's
heard of it before.
With Star Wars.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely more about
Fantasy Flight has had a number of different systems that they've done this in, different die systems, but it's a very similar concept of what you're looking for, where you build die pools and you have successes that are cancel out by failures, and then you always have some little die pool that says positive and negative and little extra things,
Right.
I think, if I remember correctly, Era of the Empire had light side and dark side symbols, kind of idea, and that bent more towards Star Wars.
Sure. Yeah.
And then this is really just the setting itself and why I didn't go too much into the setting is really just banking on the popularity of Twilight Imperium. It's a very a game rich in lore. Again, I can see where if you played the RPG, I think you would really engage more with the board game and what's going on, and that's them, that's them.
Yeah.
You get some evocative description.
That's kind of how I felt playing BattleTech a lot of times. It's like if you know the BattleTech lore or like played it like the RPG.
You're a clansman.
Right. Otherwise, it's just like you're just robots fighting each other, which is fine.
Right.
That's kind of what you're there
for. I did
right?
when we played BattleTech.
Right. Yeah.
That's 100%.
And that's another game that takes 8 hours to play one combat.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yes and no. It's slow.
If I recall, it took us 8 hours to hit one.
Yeah, no, we 8 hours. We had one session that was like 8 or 10 hours where it was like 3 maps.
If you don't know what you're doing, then
we knew what we're doing. It was just part of it was rolls, and
I think it was also the strengths and weaknesses of the next.
I think BattleTech for me, the problem is that the success rates are so low. You don't really often hit, and if you do some damage. Some weapons do more, and blah 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 blah. They do have a faster version of that system, called Alpha Strike. That's what it's called. I thought it was competent in getting what it's done. Of course, we love filling out the little circles.
I mean, I was there to hang out and play the game, so it might have been 8 hours long, but it definitely is.
I mean, it is. It could take some time, and not a lot's happening.
Yeah, Imperium's it's a long one too, right? Is it more just because of?
It's just a big board game,
right?
Imperium was fun. One of the really interesting things about Imperium is it was one of the games at the time that used the turn order and action order mechanic of Puerto Rico. So you had a number of roles, and what you did was bid for roles. And one of those roles was go first, but other roles were doing different actions. And
roles like ROLE.
ROLES, yes. So, for instance, at Puerto Rico, you have a role of, all right, we're going to sell. And this is a role where you're going to gather resources. And this is a role where you're going to get a combat action, right? So what you're doing is trying to gain a strategy and understand, do I want that role's advantage? Right. And one of the roles is I get to go first, kind of idea. So it was a really, really interesting mechanic because you all were trying to approach your victory conditions in somewhat different ways. And the other interesting thing about that mechanic, just as an aside, is that you can play where you're like, I want to make sure they don't get that role because I don't want them. I don't want my opponent to get the battle roll. So I'm going to get the battle roll. Or in Puerto Rico, I want to make certain that I know this person is going to collect a lot of this resource. So what I'm going to do is sell first so that they don't get the advantage this round of selling all of that resources that they bought. So there is some interesting play.
Why is it called Puerto Rico?
What's that?
Why is it called Puerto Rico? Yeah.
Puerto Rico you were all right. So you were merchants trying to buy and sell goods in early colonized Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay.
And you were allocating colonists that were little brown discs.
Oh, jeez.
Were ostensibly the workers that you either sent them out into the fields or sent them to the docks or sent them on ships to gather various resources and then sell them at the various markets. So there's no RNG, which I love. The only RNG in that game is what order what your opponents do. And in that case, I think it's absolutely superlative, And so this was cool that it did the same thing, only in a much more complex system. It did have die rolls, but the die rolls were based sort of risk-based remember how Risk and Axis and Allies and those games work, where you both had die pool systems and it's how many ships did I destroy, attrition, things like that. But you had little species cards, right? Alien race cards, and they had their own benefits in it is such a complex game. It's a fiddly heavy game. You have to, if you get an opportunity, look at images of a board that's set up, because
I did see that.
It takes a huge table. Like, we would generally have one of those big 8-foot round banquet tables that we would have to play in these things.
Oh, gosh.
Yada yada yada. So it's not for the faint of heart.
You have to have a setup for it.
I think it was a good game, but it's a long game. But anyway, so we talked a little bit about the agenda system. That's going to be a pretty standard goal system that we're going to really dive more heavily later on, most likely when we hit either Invisible Sun or any MCG game or Burning Wheel, right?
I do like that they add that. They have that in there. Certainly. It's like, that's,
for a one shot, it doesn't do much for us. But
right.
I think it did allow you guys to, like, role playing wise, it drives you forward.
Yeah.
It's always useful to me to know what my character's motivations are and, like, kind of what their agenda is. Like, that's, especially if it's a character I'm being given. Like, if I get a character, like, it's like a one shot cutout, and, like, it's just their stats or even just their backstory. Sometimes that can be hard to latch onto, but when you know what they want, that's,
it's important.
Yeah.
But really what we're focusing on here is, of course, the special dice, right? We played Free Market, where you're playing a card game that you're narrating as you go, as you draw and take certain actions.
Which is cool. Oh, like you commented, one thing about that it seemed to be problematic was just the fact that once you got enough ahead, it was a given that you're going to win, and you kind of
right? And then what do you do? Do you, like, cut your losses, or you try to get as many successes as possible?
Right.
But in this case, you were saying, which is, I thought, appropriate, you were saying, I'm not super fond of the cards compared to rolling dice. Here's a system. We did Trinity, where you spend dice to have narrative consequences. And in this case, you are using success, failure, advantage, and threat to do things, right? So you rolling so many threats put the adherents of Sid, those L1, L1 infected Winnu on your tail, right? Your failure with Zoran keyed Zoran in that you're up to no good, where I'm going to send some people to trail you, right, and report back, and so on and so forth, right?
I like the premise of it, and I think that once you've been playing with it for a while, the fact that it's symbols becomes a little less kind of like, it's the triangle, but I do feel like there's got to be a way to, doesn't feel super, I'm probably just preferential to number systems.
I honestly was not too disappointed with it. I mean, I'm also used to the numbers, and I wasn't sure if that was going to be something that was going to make any sense to me. But and aside from it being on the app, which I think I want to talk about sort of separately, but whether it was on the app or if they were physical dice, just having symbols on the dice and those representing things, I picked up pretty quickly. When at first I'm looking at it like, none of this makes any sense. We went through 2 rolls, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what this is. Even the icons for the skills, once I figured out what,
it's pretty easy to pick up.
All of it, became very intuitive and user-friendly. So in that sense, that was even more easy to grasp than if you had a number system and had to look up, what the numbers meant
depending on
a separate table.
And I want to point out that because Ashes of Power was a free RPG Day product, they made these character sheets very accessible. So this is not what the standard character sheets look like. And I would love to see a character generator that produced stuff like this. And also, it's very nice that the die are on the character sheets, that you could see what they are, what their symbols are, and what they represent,
I think you're right. Everything's on here, and I always like to point out the graphic design and the artistry of this. For the podcast audience, there's a really great picture of each character.
Yeah, it's a good sheet.
Yeah, that I think is great. It's on a black background with white lettering and blue titles. It definitely has. It's on sort of a star field in the background. So I mean, just the design of it is really engaging, and and I think that makes you sort of want to dive into it, as opposed to just like a white piece of paper with with words on it. Words, numbers.
The other introductory adventure has the typical, which you guys can look up, and I'll share with everybody. It has the typical character sheet, and that it doesn't have all the iconography on it. I really like the iconography.
Yeah, I probably would have completely lost if I didn't have the help of the sheet has on it.
Yeah.
Like as a first time player,
but I feel like once we played, I think it's a little opaque to start with, but once you play, I think we would get that.
Yeah. No, I think so too.
I do actually, I think I really do kind of like this more than number systems for what we're trying to do, like that. Because what you end up doing is converting the number systems into
outcomes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just mentally, I find that easier, but it's a matter. It's probably
more like high numbers.
One half doesn't have another.
Numbers don't.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, we're not even talking binary systems that are just success and failure, right? And some number systems you have a margin of success. This margin of success is sort of how many successes did you get? How many advantages did you get? that kind of deal.
Right.
And threats, which plays into, what you had choose to follow us as, a potential obstacle or.
Yeah, I definitely like that element of it. I mean, and mentioning card systems, I mean, you can kind of do the same thing with the card system. Whether you're just doing a card system, a dice system like this, you could probably, or hybrids where you have dice and cards, it's like, a lot of options.
The cards, like we were talking about, is, not that you can count the cards, but in a sense, you get a sense of what the next roll is going to be here with every die roll, given. Mm-hmm. So, here you're starting all over again with the dice.
Sure.
Each roll.
Yeah. If you know, like that you've used so many in a
weighted based off of what happened previously, which, which I'm fine.
You'll notice also that they developed a set of verbiage where you would know how many difficulty dice to roll, right? So if I say this is an average negotiation roll, you would know automatically to put 2 difficulty dice into your pool. Mm-hmm. Now, we never rolled challenge dice. I didn't use my story points. I probably should have towards the end, like upgrading my difficulty dice to challenge dice, where the opposite D12s. Mm-hmm. Which I didn't do.
And you would put in the narrative then what that challenge
is, right? Like, this might be a bigger fight than fighting the thugs, right? Where I would maybe throw some of this in. But you'll notice that the story points then go back to you. Right? For you to use in future scenes.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that
kind of idea.
And some of the equipment items that I have actually would use the
story points.
Right. No, my talents.
Story points.
Yeah. So
also, you'll note that one of on the proficiency die and challenge die, there is actually an extra symbol, which is triumph and despair, which can be used as story points.
Okay.
Which can allow you to upgrade. They're basically a super advantage and a super threat, and can often trigger various effects and use story points, or like we did with darkness points. I like this back and forth with the story points. It reminds me of darkness points, where you're like, you could see if there's 4 players and you guys are starting to pump my pool up with story points. So like, all right,
or stress. It works a little differently, but similar. Stress, right? And mothership, strain, right?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it
mothership. I'm thinking of mothership.
Oh, mothership. Yeah, stress. Yeah. But yeah, so we didn't really engage with the wound system too much, understanding that you have a wound threshold and a soak, and what that means.
You resolve that for us.
Yeah, you guys. Interestingly enough, you could see your characters. They had a soak of 4 and a threshold of 5, and you could see that compared to yours of what I see 15s and 13s.
My soak is 4, my wound threshold is 14. Yeah.
So the Winu probably would be much tougher opponents. I don't know how that might extend out. I'd have to really dig a little deeper into the combat mechanics and how that works. I do know there's strains, so there is mental and physical damage, which is kind of
cool. I like that. Yeah. I use that a lot.
And means interestingly enough, I got a hint, whether or not it's codified in the system, I'm not certain, but I got a hint of ship travel is a good time for downtime. So there's a little bit of that going on where what are you going to be doing during your downtime while you're in this 3-week trip on the ship?
Yeah.
That kind of deal.
And that was an opportunity for the characters to
interact and get to know each other. So. Any other comments about Genesys or Twilight?
We're talking about the fact that we use the app for the dice.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a convenience factor because we may not have actually had the requisite dice for this. So given that we didn't go out and have to buy those dice, it was nice to have the app. But I probably would have enjoyed having the dice.
Of course.
Roll something physically and be able to count up the dice, in that sense. And it's funny because, now just thinking about the cards, and we played a card game for Roll20.
Right.
Where we had the but when we played it on Roll20, it's almost like there I preferred having the cards electronically because the physical cards depended on our shuffles and things like that, where we weren't sure if that was completely legit or done correctly. But so I just find that interesting. The physical dice I like better, but the cards I can handle in a digital format better.
Yeah, I really love these games. We've seen several games now that have app support, which I really love. Mothership had the best app support.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Bar none. I really love the app support on that. Invisible Sun does have a little bit of app support in terms of you can actually pull suit cards on the app.
Do you keep track of I can't remember what they're called, with the little pips, the little...
No, it's not that kind of thing. I'm trying to think. We had a couple others, but so there's a number of game companies that have some app support, which I like. And this being I think is necessary, right? I appreciate a company who's like, yes, we have dice. Yes, you're gamers. You're going to want to buy our dice, right? but we're going to exploit that want,
right?
But we're not going to make our game unplayable.
Yeah, that would be, for me, it's kind of like if you're going to have custom dice and you're not going to have a default easy way to translate it into standard dice, then you got to have an app or something else as an alternate,
Yeah, as you can see, I think, and it does have a map, it does have a table where you could use regular dice.
Right, so then it's,
But I think that would be very slow. Right? The slow point for me here is building your die pools. Mm-hmm. I think as you play, you might get a little faster at it, but I still think it would be a little, it takes you away from the narrative a little bit to build your die pools. I could see people complaining and just saying, this is the same thing my complaint about Story Path also is, is you're building die pools. So
I mean,
like 1, 2, 3,
I
4,
find
5, 6, 7, 8.
that can be a really easy way to build the narrative, but you have to actually engage with it that way. I mean, some players do more than others, but I definitely have seen that happen where it's kind of like, okay, I'm drawing on these 3 from my skill, so that means I'm doing this. So like.
If you do it right, I think you can add to it.
Can add
Same
to it,
thing
but
here. Like you're supposed to vie for boost dice.
Mhm.
So you're supposed to do things and suggest things that give you advantages,
right.
and you thus could get more boost dice. Consequently, I put you in situations. I just went by the book here. You know I'm a bastard when it comes to games. So I'm going to throw setback dice at you every opportunity I get. It's dark. It's raining. You're frightened. Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I gave you, I think, 1, maybe 2 setback dice. But in this case, for you, the thugs gave you a setback dice.
Right.
Like they're just hardened criminals. Like they knew what they were doing. They had an aura about them is how it explained it. We also didn't get into a lot of the mysticism that's involved in this game, in this space opera. Like there is, again, it's technology, but it's magic, kind of idea. This was just a down to earth, investigative thing. Again, one of the few times we actually went.
But it did. I mean, it played for me kind of like more of the sort of scenario that I would expect in a good way for this. I mean, we were talking with Sire Plus Punk, the subway one or the train one.
Oh, yeah.
It was interesting. It was great, but it was like not what I would expect for like for the one shot that gives you. This felt very much like kind of like what I would expect from a sort of quote unquote space game, where we're on a ship, we're going on an investigation. There's also combat with, high power weapons, that sort of thing. Has all this kind of Mass Effect-y, right?
I think it would have been interesting. I don't remember what you rolled, but it would have been interesting then if you had rolled several threats, to be like, you're getting strained because you feel bad about using high powered weapons on ostensibly civilians, right. Like it really stresses you out. Like I like the idea of even approaching things like PTSD, how did your war efforts, your being out there affect you? Do you go into a fugue? So there's a lot of really interesting ways that you can use those things. Jams on weapons, right? Slip and falls, you go prone. What are your disadvantages and advantages, right? Oh, well, you don't do damage to them. You didn't get a success, but you got an advantage. Can I knock him prone? Yes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or is he overcompensating? Yada, yada, yada. In their threat, do you drop your grav mace?
Right.
Or does the grav mace get thrown, glitch and get thrown into the bulwark? You're like, crap, I can't lift it. What do you fix the ground mace, or do you engage with the enemy kind of idea? So I just think that there's a lot of really fun ways that, quite honestly, numbered die pool, I really have a hard time.
Unless if you have a built-in,
make that up.
or you have a built-in system that
you have a built-in system like Story Path with consequences,
right? Or have a partial success element to it.
Partial success. Well, and I didn't follow the rules to the T, but what I did is I used Apocalypse Now ideas of partial successes and partial failures, what those consequences look like, and engaging how do I push and how do I not push,
right?
So I would have definitely done strain. I've definitely done damage, in those situations. You were actually failing a lot of rolls,
especially early on.
And I was just worsening, moving things forward, but worsening your situation. Yeah. But then in the combat, you guys just move them out of the water.
These guys.
Really funny.
We tried to negotiate.
Yeah, you did. You took every opportunity to try to,
Granted, my character was not a negotiator, so it's like I negotiate mostly with my gun. But
you had to intimidate. That's what you did. Cool. Anything else about Genesys?
I thought it was an interesting system. I'm definitely not trying to talk it down. I would play it again.
Yeah.
You know.
And then, of course, the Genesys core book is designed to pretty much write anything you want to. Like, you use these dice, but it could be in any setting.
Right.
Right. And I think that's actually the tagline of like gaming anywhere and, you know, it's type deal.
Right.
Right. Murdering that paraphrase, but that
Anywhere, anytime.
you can really see, and it's talent structure and then item structure. You could easily see how this would translate into mundane items or magic items or spells.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, any number of various ways to manage cyberware or...
And most of the stuff, I think this is a good thing, but most of the things that aren't dice related are very kind of trope standard, like, you know, like you get a skill tied to an ability and things like that, where it's just like, I know what that is already. The new element is the dice system, basically.
Yeah. And how you build those die pools is not important to our conversation, but is just you take the rank of the skill and the rank of the ability it's tied to.
Mm-hmm.
The high one is the number of dice you roll, and the low one is the number of those dice that got upgraded.
Right. Yeah. On this sheet, it actually just shows us what dice to roll, so we don't have to worry about calculating. Yeah.
Which I'd be a little concerned about that. I like that for this. That's why I'm saying I want a character generator that produces this sheet that does that for you.
Right.
You touched on it, but with the items and equipment, that adds
boosts.
To those rolls. But not only that, but you boost and actually just add automatic success and threat. You know, in one sense. So this is a success and threat. My character had a bottle of fine spirits. I didn't get a chance to use that. It's an automatic success. So it's interesting how then, to your point, there'd be kind of wide open in terms of...
Right. You could see like combat drugs that also can add complications to threats. Oh, by the way, whatever you do, you get a threat because you're on a combat drug, you know, or something like that. I also love the idea of cursed weapons, right? Upgrade one of your difficulty dice to a challenge die because of this cursed weapon, which really denies allows you to play through the idea that I have a cursed weapon, but most people are like, all right, well, this is garbage, I throw it away, right? But this is like, well, it's a little more dangerous because you're going to add threats and things like but it's still... You know, it's still going to be cool. Like, I still can have it be a +1 weapon or whatever the case is, you know. Now it's a boost weapon, right? Or, you know, it adds to my ability. Like, there's so many interesting ways that you can go with it.
Yeah. I'm down.
Cool. Again, one of the things I loved about this and why I ran this scenario was because it's a 40-page scenario with the core rules in it that is free. There's another 40-page scenario with the core rules that is free. And you had a little supplementary 10-page thing that had extra characters. So I really appreciated you could play this game a lot without buying the books, which is... I think a testament to the confidence of the designer saying, look, we if you like this game, you're going to want to buy it.
Right.
And quite honestly, I agree. I think that if I were to run a 2-year campaign, I would 100% buy it, even though I have these resources. You know?
And then you go out and buy the board game.
Buy the board game.
Then you buy add a room to your house so you can play the board game.
And there is actually a couple other games that are set in the same, like different kinds of games that are set in the same world, things like that. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome.
There you go. There's Twilight Imperium.
You have been listening to another episode of the Modern Mythology Podcast. We hope we gave you something new to think about that you can bring to your RPGs, writing, and other character-based games and art forms. Produced by James Kershaw. Soundtrack by Scott Landis and James Kershaw. For more information about this episode, articles, or links to our other related projects, visit modernmythology.net.